Welcome to Victory Beyond the Cup, Session 3. Now you're going to enter into spiritual conversations. One of the best ways to do that is to listen, and listen well. Listen with your mind, listen with your heart, and listen with your body language. When people feel listened to, then they're going to listen to you, and you're going to share your story. And then ask them questions. Some questions I like to ask are, what was your religious background? Did you have a good experience or did you have not a good experience? And let them elaborate. And then if you want to go a little deeper, you can ask them, have you ever read the Bible? Or what do they think about God? People like to share when they know it's a safe place where they're going to be loved, and that's your role, to love your neighbor.
In John 4, we read about an interaction Jesus initiated with a Samaritan woman. Jesus initially took a moment to rest by a well and asked a woman for a drink from it. This small question, seeking assistance, led to a natural conversation where they each shared their perspectives of the history of that well and of their people groups. And how can you intentionally create a moment where you can have a casual, practical conversation about something around you, like water or like the World Cup? Just like Jesus, how might you ask a neighbor for something? You might not need help, but asking for it, like, can you help me host a World Cup party, can help build trust with your neighbor. When Jesus transitions into a spiritual conversation in the following verse, he connects the need to quench physical thirst with the need to satisfy a spiritual one. The woman grew intrigued and continued to engage with him over her knowledge of spiritual things. Like Jesus, how can you make connections to spiritual themes from everyday conversation? Consider, for example, the World Cup, a tournament of people seeking victory. Can you see the connections? Jesus is the ultimate victor who conquered death, hell, and the grave. Through him, we can have ultimate victory forever, not just temporary. The most important thing for us to remember is to listen for the connections that the Holy Spirit wants us to make.
When I became a Christian, I wanted to be a silent Christian. I didn't want to share my faith at all. And then I went on a mission trip. It was Daytona Beach. I still said, I'm not going to bring the gospel with anybody. I'm just going to do the Bible studies and worship. But then I watched the people go out. They started conversations with strangers. In about 5 minutes, one person would share their story. The next would share the good news about Jesus. And I started to think, maybe I'll do that too. And I took a risk, and it became a turning point. After that trip, it changed the trajectory of my life. I thought, I'm going to start to share with my family, with my friends, and I was never the same. The World Cup is a turning point. And as you start to share with different people, you're going to realize God has called you. He's gifted you. He wants to work in you and through you. And as you see lives changed, remember, outreach is not just taught, it's also caught.
Recently, a contractor came to my parents' house to propose his work on the driveway. And after a few minutes of discussing business and prices, I sensed that he was open to more diverse conversation. And so I knew that I could guide the conversation towards spiritual things if I mentioned my work, because I'm a full-time Christian worker. So I decided to share that my parents are retired, which then kind of motivated him to ask me, well, what do you do for a living? Which I then responded that I work for a global Christian organization. And as it started to spark his interest, he mentioned that his aunt is actually a nun and asked me if that was a similar type of job. Well, it wasn't long before I asked him then if he's a practicing Catholic or a Christian and if he believed in prayer. See, spiritual dialogue is just that, the sharing of thoughts around spiritual things.
Some people are going to be eager to learn more. My grandpa put his trust in Jesus in his 70s, and he was spiritually hungry. But there's other people who are not quite ready to dive in deep, and that was my grandmother. And I just said, Grandma, sometime I'd like to talk more with you about this. Just saying that sometime takes the pressure off. Well, that sometime turned to be much later, and I shared the gospel, and at that point, she was ready to follow Jesus in her 80s, and I told Grandpa, and he was in tears. It was so exciting. Both of them know the Lord. Grandpa was ready right away, and then Grandma a little bit later.
There are lots of tools that we can use to invite our neighbors into spiritual dialogue. One that we want to highlight is called Solarium. These picture cards can help you identify where someone is on their spiritual journey and how willing they are to have a conversation. Consider using this deck of picture cards at a cookout or a watch party to dig deeper spiritually. The instructions come with the deck, and all you have to do are ask the questions. Maybe you can open the deck and put the pictures on a coffee table or on the wall or even on your floor. Then say something like, I love this conversation starter. I just got it. Would you like to go through it with me? If they agree or if they're curious, you simply read through the questions that are provided or make some up of your own. You can ask questions like, which one of these pictures represents your life right now? Which one do you wish would represent your life right now? Which one represents God to you? And then take it from there. Listen to the Holy Spirit. Whatever you ask, remember to listen to them and to the Holy Spirit, and He will guide you the rest of the way. You can access these tools and more in our online community through the Mighty Networks app. Don't forget to share your experience with the kit while you're there and tell us some of the ideas that God's given you to make the most of this opportunity.